it's pretty hot. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit of water on El Firo. Ah, that's not so bad. Okay. Let's just soak a little bit of that in. Okay, fresh out of the shower, welcome to the Panpsychic Sauna. I am your host. I'm Warren Charles Dexter. I have 3 names, you can toss them all around anyway. I figured out in my off time, this is now day 33, or the 3rd of the 11-day cycles in sequence. And that's where we're at right now. We have this show becoming podcast number 3 officially of the Panpsychic Sauna. And we're not looking for advertisers or trying to be fancy that way. I just wanted a private place to be able to have a conversation. And I recognize now that it takes a lot even to think about it. You know, what would you say if you got to be all alone for a few moments? So I really do respect all these folks who've been able to kind of get into that panpsychic mind groove channel and dial themselves into some dialogue that matters. And there are a lot of them. And so podcasts have been in the media a lot this week. And as your resident panpsychic spiritualist, self-proclaimed, I'd like to just take a look at some of the news and try to show you a little bit about what I mean in terms of applied panpsychism. Because the idea would be, let's look at this from a standpoint of how can we use something as abstract as panpsychism, which for those of you who haven't been with us for the first few episodes, I haven't explained very well. But essentially, panpsychism is the idea that matter has as one of its components intelligence, consciousness, the ability for knowledge, and this is where the words really start to fail us, because we have words that refer to our human condition, and knowledge and intelligence and consciousness all have meanings to us as human beings. But the idea of panpsychism needs to extrapolate those meanings, those words, into more holistic ideas, I guess, that would say that the fabric of atoms that makes up a thing is doing so according to a very lockstep sort of order that repeats itself in the making of a shell or an egg or very basic things that you're talking about. Sure, you can describe it in terms of the organic components of formation, and those are certainly there. The chemicals that make up an egg or anything, right? But what panpsychism is attempting to idealize, essentially, is a picture where perhaps there is a lot we don't know about the energy that drives the particles we've been talking about for so long. That the energy that drives particles at the speed of light make up everything, and we've always described in science class as the building blocks of everything we know. But building blocks stay where they are. And everything that you build with has to be based on foundational sciences and physics that are going to identify the perimeter of what you're trying to build, and then the structure is very specific. And that's not possible if you're talking about moving things that are moving at the speed of light. So in the realm of the panpsychic understanding, I guess is the way I'm trying to use these words, we're talking about the molecular perspective, what you might be thinking if you were a molecule, or if you as I've said in past broadcasts here, that this is the the ultimate 30,000 foot view. This is the ultimate step way back to the point where you are, immersed in ideas that go way beyond common thought, right? You would never say, I've been in a lot of hailstorms. In fact, I was in a hailstorm yesterday out here. But you don't have a situation in a hailstorm where you're so dizzied by things that are moving at the speed of light in all directions in complex overlapping orbits. And excuse me. And then there's the whole idea about saunas and why the sauna becomes a place to relax, contemplate things, and you can't stay very long. It's not really a safe place. It's warm and safe and comforting for a little while, but it's one of those things that really will hurt you if you stay too long. It will dry out your skin and make you uncomfortable and make you old fast. And so the whole idea for proper sauna usage is to be able to invigorate like I did today after a shower and allow your mind to go through some exploratory, where am I? And so right now I'm in the sauna. I'm in Panpsychic sauna with you. And I'm attempting to make the same sort of connection between people that would only be possible if we were both to believe that we were connected and that we were, bonded through the communication. Because if, in fact, as my favorite professor in college, Sean O'Rourke, said, that if less than 10% of anything that you try to say to somebody is actually communicated because of all the filters and things that we have in each of us and ways of changing meanings as they come in, that if we're only getting that 10% of what we think we're putting across in what Socrates called the myth of understanding, where we actually believe the person on the other end is hearing us word for word, or we could never continue the streaming of the words. And you talk about how people learn to stream as an art, but those that have learned the skill of being able to sort of ramble on, keep a topic flowing like a radio talk show host, like as I was talking about Rush Limbaugh and others that way, Howard Stern, anybody. And now we're seeing it everywhere. I've been listening to guys that are great, never heard of, and they are great, and I just plug in. I've listened to a lot of people now. I mean, it's really neat. And if people can find ways to make these videos where it is that direct connection, and I like this format better than the format that would be the news or discussion of the topics of the day. But on this particular day, we are podcasty, and so we're hearing a little bit about the Joe Rogan controversy, which I just think it's dumb. And as I sit in a sauna, I would say it all just seems like dumb. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. In fact, I think people are trying to find things to just worry about. And so here in the sauna, we're just not going to worry about that. And by the same token, we've recently heard about Whoopi Goldberg and how Whoopi Goldberg, who is actually Karen by name, that Whoopi was making comments about the Holocaust, and she said, to paraphrase, that the Holocaust story was more about what people can do to one another when they gain power one over another. And I thought she made a fairly valid point in terms of that particular, if you wanted to get broader than what we've known about it as, which is a race destruction in mass, in ovens, something not to be taken lightly and all that, and we understand that. But if you wanted to broaden the conversation panpsychically and try to say this was about people taking control over other people beyond just race, I think that's very valid. See, now panpsychically, you can step back and say, well, if we're not talking about just one person, we're talking about somehow all the people of a nation, as in the entire Nazi party or the entire Germany or something like that, right? That now we're talking at that level where you can't just describe this in terms of what did he do, what are the facts. You're talking now about a multi-dimensional, multi-person situation. And that's where applying panpsychism becomes very valuable. You can simply step way back and say, you know, whatever you want to say. But I'm just simply saying, when you realize down at this very essential level, we are this short-term being alive for just a moment inside this whirl of matter traveling at the speed of light. And if you've spent any time contemplating the idea that perhaps each electron knows what it's doing, perhaps each, you know, it's the kind of thing that's so far beyond a laboratory or any kind of situation where you could, you know, create experimentation. In fact, that's one of the neatest parts of what the panpsychic world is attempting to do, would be to isolate and experiment the community that is trying to embrace panpsychism as the way, like the next wave of Einstein or quantum physics in terms of our understanding. That's the idea. Could you construct any experiment that would show intelligence in choice or something like that, where maybe you created a situation where something was growing a certain way and you introduced something to it that wouldn't necessarily change it chemically, but might alter it if in fact it were connected through some other means besides chemical. Like, you know, could you plant a plant and then just place a certain shaped object or a certain type of material or something near it but not touching it, or, you know, in some way that you caused a growth reaction that you could explain as intelligence? We don't have any of this. We're talking about panpsychism because it's more fun than saying that our brain just sort of dreams all this up. That's nice when we talk about our dreams and such. But if you get to the really functional creative level, you have to build things, you have to get dirty, you have to bolt them together, you have to make decisions, you have to decide how big you can build, the physical limitations, and all those things become obvious to anybody who's actually doing. But in the realm of just thinking, the philosophers have limited our thinking to this idea of materialism, where your brain develops all the ideas through the chemical soup that is your brain and the synaptic reactions and the things that are your brain. And then conversely to that, as the other kind of master school of thinking, is the idea of dualism. And these are all the things you can go spend your lifetime trying to learn if you want to, but dualism is the idea that we are somehow connected. The spirit inside of us is, in our thoughts and in our minds, is somehow connected to something outside of us, an eternal soul of our own, a soul that is connected with God, perhaps, a soul that is connected with nature and animals and other parts of the universe, a soul that is connected to nothingness of outer space, whatever it is that is the duality, where our soul is embodied but at the same time something else. That's a wonderful school. That's where most religion comes from, the idea that we are connected to something eternal, and that's a beautiful thing. So this is that idea in a different form. Panpsychism is the idea that we are eternal, but we are eternal through the fact of energy. Kind of like the earth is eternal through the fact of gravity. If it were not for the fact of gravity in the universe, the agglomeration of materials that becomes a planet, an orbiting mass in space, would be impossible. And once it is agglomerated as a mass, the idea that it can be energized with something that we call gravity we don't really understand. How is that? How do we know that when this atom matches with this atom, they do a dance that is very happily between just the two of them, right? When they become part of an atmosphere and an earth, there really isn't a great explanation for how they somehow all together aggregate their energies to become one massive gravitational pull that represents the scale of the earth and the scale of the moon and the scale of the other planets we're aware of, the scale of the sun. So anyway, I love this whole construct. I love the panpsychic sauna idea. I love the idea of meeting every 11 days. I also don't mind the fact that nobody's watching this. I think if I could manage to get to 1,100 people watching what's now 50 to 100 people watching in the following week, this is a week and a half cycle, and if over 11 of these cycles I could get to the point where I was talking with intention to 1,000 or 1,111 people, then that would be my idea. And I want to answer questions. I'm trying to use the YouTube engine. I'm totally given into them as a creator. I'm basically throwing the videos out there just because this is kind of fun and a personal test for me. But what I'd like to do is be able to have people get with me on this idea that when you step way back from the little things that are being discussed on our planet right now, and you start recognizing the real power of panpsychic energy, like let's talk about it in the form of markets. Today I'm getting just beat up in natural gas market and trading. You don't want to be owning natural gas positions that are short right now. It's been exploding. See, I thought I was seeing a top. And that is also a place where panpsychic energy can be applied. You're attempting to qualify all of the things that are happening in the minds of hundreds of thousands of people. You're attempting to read the news on their behalf. You're attempting to, as one market watcher told me years ago, a broker, when they used to have brokers, said, you want to know a position that you're trading like you know your wife or your girlfriend, or that you know them so well that you know how they will react to certain kinds of news, certain kinds of advancements, certain kinds of reports. And once you have that, you're really in a relationship with that equity that can feel great at times and can burn you like it is doing me today. So I love the fact that we can use panpsychism to step back. In the future episodes, I'd like to tell you some more about my family and my experiences and the wonderful people. I've lived this kind of Forrest Gump life where I'm a black sheep guy with time to sit around in the sauna, but being a musician and I want to be a philosopher. I'm just going to do that. I'm deciding this is my way. You are my pathway to being a philosopher. So I'm really sweaty now, and I appreciate you being able to be with me in this process. I've been through a lot, and I like the idea of not coming in here to blab my story, but to try to stimulate more people thinking about panpsychism and to just wonder about it with me. Because I wonder about it. What is it? How do we use it? Is it real? Can we disprove it? But if in fact there's some sort of intelligent design engine that exists at the energy layer of our universe, I would think we'd want to understand that. I mean, that would seem like job number one, like even our Defense Department would be on it. So this may be like they stare at goats, don't they? And it may have the same kind of qualifiers as the world of quantum physics, things like that. You might be looking at this. This might be the panpsychic, the intelligent side of what is going on that they haven't even yet been able to try to explain in quantum physics. So I can only hope. And so I plan to do a show each 11 days. And this being the 33rd day of the year, I'll be counting out from here now 11 days. And It doesn't matter when I do it because you can watch whenever you want to watch it, and I appreciate you watching it, and I appreciate you telling anybody else if they are into this idea, philosophical idea of panpsychism, that I think I'm going to create a nice little forum here where persons can come together and enjoy a little sweat in the sauna and a little relaxation and a little bit of science. And that's why we call it. And a little bit of politics. And that's why we call it the Panpsychic Sauna. And I thank you for being here with me in episode 3 on day 33. And I hope you have a very good rest of your life. And I love you for watching and all that. Thanks. And if you watch me at 2x, 2 times or even 5 times normal speed so that I whip through this stuff faster, I think it still works. It still works. You might not have to go at this speed where my brain processes it. You might be able to just turn it up. So, anyway, thanks to YouTube, and thanks for all the support I've been getting from the millions of folks now that are starting to send me, cards and letters, and keep those cards and letters coming. Thanks once again for being part of my episode number 3, day 33 of this year, 2022, in the Panpsychic Sauna.